So
Cool, let's start. Yeah.
yeah, let's start. So welcome to Nother. Nother is a centre here on the west coast of Ireland, and we now do a lot of things online. Um, and so Joseph will be giving the talk this evening, and this evening's webinar is as a platform to introduce, what is TRE and how does it combine with Soma breath, and how is that useful for our nervous system for regulation, which is more or less why tension releasing happens. It's to regulate our nervous systems. Um, you also trained in theory 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, and we found out about theory around 10 years ago. A friend of ours, Steve Haynes, that we do big trainings with, the craniosacral trainings, he was doing TRE for many, many years, and we started doing it with them and started feeling the benefit. So if I just explain how I feel TRE before Joseph starts talking about the technical, it's that for me, it's a very simple, very straightforward, very easygoing way of regulating the heavy chunks of me, the bits of me that are full, the bits of me that need to regulate. And so it's a very simple, non-thinking, non-talking regulation tool that is just very, I find it incredibly wholesome, incredibly light, and even fun. There's a sense of joy in it for me, where my body gets to be just as it wishes to be, in movement, in flow. Um, so this evening, Joseph's going to talk you through the anatomy and physiology, or the mechanics of how this movement is, and he's going to lead you also through a breath sequence, a Soma breath sequence. And at the end, there will be time for questions and answers. And I'll pop back in on the end as well, because if you want to know anything about the 8-day course and how, just any technical information about that and when it starts, how it runs, and all that kind of stuff. Um, so great. Lovely, yes. It's over to you. And
Cool, thanks, Kira.
yeah, how lovely, how great, lovely. I hope you have
Le-
a wonderful evening.
Let's get going.
Yeah.
Great, guys. Listen, welcome so much. Nice to see so many people interested. And yes, I'm Joseph. We run with Kira, we run Nardua together here, our holistic center. I'm a craniosacral therapist. I work a lot with trauma. I work a lot with bodies in a way, minds and bodies. And part of this series, I've been publishing a number of different 8-day programs. Is really to, in this time of crisis in the world, to put out all the tools that I've found to be most useful in my experience as a therapist, also as a personal explorer. So whatever I'll be telling you, I've tested with my clients, and I've tested it on myself. So it's basically about getting tools for life. Is really, that's what I want to offer, like tools for life that I think are amazingly helpful, and that really can turn life around from wherever it is, really, like, and promote the best part of us, like, yeah. So that's really, how do we grow, how do we develop? And very often it's about letting go of that which holds us back, like, yeah. So that's really the journey, and I've had a big journey myself of letting go that which holds me back. So I can talk a lot about that. And yeah, it's really through my own personal journey I have come into become a therapist, and then also I found, once I was able to help myself, I was able to help other people as well. Like, and that's my motivation. I love it. I just love this an environment of growth and well-being, and how to cultivate it. Like, yeah. So this is really about this, and I'm gonna show my PowerPoint presentation, yeah, and talk about all the different aspects. Primarily, it's focused on this program that I'm doing around the TOE and the Soma breath. Like, so it's a combination of two big passions of mine. The breath really in the center of everything that I do. I have a daily breath practice. I've been breathing for years and years. I teach a martial art as well. So I was trained in Japanese mentality, and breath is always a big part in this journey. And I think it's amazingly important. And so I'll start sharing my screen. And you just have to tell me that, oops, I actually have to go back, sorry. Start sharing again. And this time with sound. Great, cool. Now just a slideshow from beginning. Cool, here we go. Can you all see my screen? You should see a picture, yeah? Could you just give me a hand signal? Perfect, good, very good, thank you. Great, so this is the program that is really, I'll be talking about this program and really about the content of this program and all the components that I've put in there. And it starts on the 21st of February, and it's one of my 8-day programs. I've been releasing a number of them in the last months. And yeah, I'm really proud actually that I got it together to be able to shift from a space where we couldn't treat and to, yeah, it's difficult. You know, touch therapy is not a very safe thing to do at the moment in all the lockdown and all the issues around COVID. And I think, yeah, initially it was like a frustration, like it's the one thing that I love most. I can't do it, and I've learned like, well, I have to do it. There's a lot more to be done. Like you said, it's been a really useful time to explore and send out, basically make those tools available, and I'm really enjoying it. Good, so let's start. So there's two elements to this. Like one is this TOE. So I'm a TOE provider, as Kira has mentioned. And the other one is Soma Breath, and I'm also a Soma Breath coach, certified Soma Breath coach. And both two amazing methods that sort of target a they target a similar aspect of our transformational journey. Like, yeah, so they go really, really well together. And I just read it out. So tension and trauma release exercise is a simple and innovative series of exercises that assist the body in releasing deep muscular patterns of stress, tension, and trauma. Yeah? Through a series of 7 simple exercises, the body starts to tremor and release deeply held muscle contraction. So that's really the core of this exercise. It's a very simple exercise. It's been put together by a very smart guy who really managed to put an incredible Dr. David Berzelli, who was working in war zones, and he sort of observed that as the bombs were dropping, that all human beings exposed to this threat responded in similar ways by contracting certain muscles. And he came up with this amazing system to actually target those muscles and release the energy that is stored within them. Yeah? I'll talk a lot more about this later. So that's just the basic. And then Soma Breath, again, a wonderful method. It's a very, very broad method based on actually a modern version extracted from Indian pranayama exercises, and sort of selected out of those many, many various techniques, the ones that have some good scientific backing were selected to put together a really comprehensive and great package. And yeah, I loved both of those methods. And the main goal of the breath is really to correct our breathing so that our normal rate of breath at rest is 3 to 4 breaths per minute. That's really the aim and the target if we want to be as healthy as we can be and really orient towards a healthy life, a long-lasting healthy life. The breath is key, and learning to live with less air is actually key to changing a lot of dysfunctional patterns. And there's a lot of people with dysfunctional breath patterns. Yeah. So this says on average, people breathe about 10 breaths per minute. Very sick or highly stressed people breathe over 20 breaths per minute. And to regulate it can really help to protect against disease, balance our emotions, and help to be more in the flow. So that's really it, sort of using the breath to facilitate flow, and also the DIE using the release of muscle tension again to go towards flow. And flow is really, I think, a state that allows us to move with life and move towards life. Yeah. And it's basically the state we want to be in when we experience our life as much as possible, hopefully. A state of flow where we can be opened and explorative, and very often that's hijacked. Yeah, so I meet a lot of situations and clients, and also in myself, where I felt, wow, this flow is severely hijacked by the history of my life, like the stuff I've accumulated, the patterns that I'm holding. And yes, so this is really the message. Is probably we all hold some stories, but we all for sure hold some stories in our body. And some of those stories, it's really helpful to let go of them, to find ways to shift and to transform. And both of those tools I found incredibly beneficial to do so. Yeah. And the 8-day course by no means will be, so it's basically what I want to sow is really seeds. Like, you know, 8 days, they can make a huge difference in helping reorientation. Yeah. In themselves, they're a very short period in a whole life. Like, yeah, but really in those 8 days, the idea is basically that I'm going to give away tools that you will learn, all the people who join will learn. And after those 8 days, you can bring those tools into your life, and they are hopefully will become lifelong tools to support your well-being. Really, that's the idea. Like, yeah. So the 8 days is a good way to sample them and really get into them, and then the hope is that they're tools that will be part of your self-care toolbox. Like, so that's really my aim for this program. Good. So I'm going to start because there's a really, really nice sort of comic summarizing the basic sort of approach that DIE takes and where it comes from. Like, yeah, so I'm going to play that because it condenses and saves me a lot of talking afterwards. Yeah, so we can do more practice at the end. Yes, I just want to make sure. Give me a hand signal that you can
Meet Caveman Bob. When he encountered a dinosaur in the old days, his heart would beat faster, his blood pressure would rise, his muscles would tense, his eyes would dilate, and cortisol and adrenaline would be released into his body, all to prepare his body to run away or fight for his life. Whether he ran away from the dinosaur and got away, or whether he attacked and conquered the dinosaur, the stress chemicals in his body would be discharged and he could go about his day as normal. Meet Berta the buck. When she encounters a lion, her body goes into fight or flight mode, with all the same physical and chemical changes in her body that Caveman Bob experienced. But sometimes neither fight nor flight is an option for Berta. Sometimes running away and drawing attention to herself would be more dangerous, or trying to attack would be even more dangerous. She doesn't have those sharp teeth. In these cases, her body's nervous system goes into freeze mode to try and keep her safe. Because she doesn't use the chemicals to run or fight, they stay in her body. But being a wild animal, she has a natural ability to release these chemicals. When the predator leaves, her body starts tremoring, shaking, and trembling. This releases all of the pent-up chemicals and muscle tension, and she can go about her day as normal. But meet Sheldon. He is confronted by modern-day stresses such as unmanageable deadlines, difficult co-workers, and worries about his marriage and kids. He has psychological concerns about loss of love, status, prestige, and belonging. These are Sheldon's dinosaurs, and his body responds in the same way as if they were physical threats. His heart beats faster, blood pressure rises, muscles tense, eyes dilate, and stress hormones are released into his body. Sheldon's dinosaurs are difficult to run away from and difficult to fight. If he has an argument with his boss and runs away, he'll be shown the door, and if he attacks his boss, he'll be shown a prison cell. So, like Berta, Sheldon's body goes into freeze mode. He becomes immobilized. His heart rate, blood pressure, and body temperature decreases, and his clarity of thought decreases as part of a numbing process to avoid pain and overwhelming emotions. The same thing happened to Sheldon when he was mugged a month ago. Because fight or flight would have been too dangerous, his optimum survival response was the freeze response. The body did a good thing by going into freeze, but because Sheldon did not fight or run away, the stress chemicals will not be released from his body as happened for Caveman Bob. Sheldon's body started to shake a little when he was angry with his boss, and it shook a lot just after the mugging. But he told himself to get it together and to calm down, and he stopped the shaking. Because he has been socially conditioned to stop his body shaking, the stress chemicals will not be released as happened for Berta, so they stay locked in his nervous system. This means Sheldon will experience physical symptoms like tension in his muscles, headaches, and an upset stomach. He will also experience psychological symptoms like anxiety, poor concentration, difficulty sleeping, depression, anger, or fear. Living in this kind of biological survival state makes him more vulnerable to many diseases and psychological disorders. But if Sheldon could utilize the body's natural tendency to tremor and shake after a stressful or traumatic event, it would discharge these chemicals. Sheldon's physical symptoms would improve, his primitive brain would realize that he survived and is safe, and his cognitive brain would allow him to feel more empowered and better able to handle things in the future. Ta-da! And this is where TRE comes in. TRE, developed by a very clever man, Dr. David Berceli, is a series of 7 exercises that work on a very special muscle called the psoas muscle. These exercises evoke the body's natural tremor response and allow stress chemicals to be discharged. Sheldon found out that these exercises can be learnt by oneself or in groups, and that in 4 to 6 sessions he would be equipped to practice them all by himself. He felt so much better after his TRE sessions that he started to tell everyone about TRE, because he wanted them to know that TRE could help them as well. His 16-year-old daughter who was stressed from exams, his 7-year-old nephew who was being bullied at school, his colleague who had struggled with a soccer injury for many years, and his aunt who had had an operation 2 months earlier. The body responds to physical and psychological stress and trauma with its innate survival response. So Sheldon knew that TRE could help all of these people in his life.
Cool. Oops, sorry, I'll stop the sound. Okay. So that's just a very condensed, quick overview, and I'm just going to talk a little bit more about it. So again, this is David Berceli, and one of the really important things with this whole approach is really it's a bottom-up approach, like from the nervous system perspective. Yeah, so the system uses the body to let go of tension. Like, yeah, very often we approach trauma and difficulties and stress from this sort of thinking perspective. We try to think our way out. We try to find solutions, which is good, like, you know, but if the body is ignored, it's very difficult to actually get rid of the energy that is stored in our musculoskeletal system and in our metabolism, really, like, yeah. And the key here is really what David says here: everything that happens to us on a psycho-emotional level has a direct and immediate effect on us at the neurophysiological level. Yeah, so it's something got to do with our nervous system and our body, which is really the ground of our psycho-emotional states, like, yeah. And meeting the body and the connecting mind and body can be an enormous transformational shift, really, like, yeah. And I found it to be a very good approach. Good. So this is really just an image. So basically, primitive reflexes. Yes. So when we experience stressful situations, when we are shocked, or if we experience a consistent stress, our musculoskeletal system responds. Like, yeah, and the muscle groups that are holding this tension chronically, or begin to hold this tension chronically, they're really the muscles that are normally engaged in expressing it, running away from fighting back. Like, yeah, so those muscles, when we retract from the world and freeze in a way, they start to become chronically engaged and chronically tight. And it's really those core muscles, like, yeah, so they connect the legs to our torso, and they are deeply connected. So you can say there's a deep connection of muscle and fascia running up along our body, creating those lines, including our diaphragm, including the pericardium, our heart, our throat, our neck, and our jaw muscles, even our tongue, like, yeah. And they are all those structures. If any of you ever had a period of high stress, you've probably noticed that the back gets sore, the shoulders get sore, the neck gets tight. Maybe the jaw begins to get really sore, the teeth start to grind, like, yeah. So all this phenomena that we experience is really stored along this line, like, yeah. So it's somewhere along this core link through the body, we start to accumulate tension and issues. And the tear is really a way to access those tensions and allow them to naturally discharge, like, yeah. So it's a natural process. Like, we've looked at, I forgot the name, but the little animal. All mammals have the capacity to release tension through a physiological reset, like, which is basically a tremor. Maybe some of you have dogs, we have dogs. When the fireworks go off, where are the dogs? They're in the back kitchen, tremoring in their basket, shaking, like, yeah. And because they do so, they naturally reset. So the next day, they don't end up as stiff, sore dogs. They're just perfectly fine, like, because they can let go. And that's the beauty about this system. We can do the same. We've got the same physiology, or a very similar neurophysiology, that allows us to access and take advantage of those natural reset mechanisms. So I just need to mute again, everybody. Yep. Good. So going on a little bit, what David talked about, what the little presentation talked about really is our autonomic, it's called our autonomic nervous system. Yeah, it's the unconscious realm of our body, really, like, yeah, that which we don't consciously control. And so much is going on in this realm. Like, it's all our nervous system responses to do with metabolism, hormone balance, fluid balance, temperature balance. So basically the maintenance of homeostasis is primarily in the autonomic realm. Like, yeah, so we don't have to think about tweaking hormone expressions and tweaking water balance, fluid balance in the body, and calcium levels and so on. It happens in the dark, and if in balance, it happens incredibly smoothly. Like, yeah, so there's so much going on, maintaining homeostasis, and we don't even notice it. It happens fluidly, and when it's in balance, it offers us a harmonious being state in a way. Like, yeah, so we can enjoy the food that we eat, absorb the nutrients that we receive from the food. We can go for runs and calm down again after. We can sit and meditate. And all those being states are really regulated by this autonomic realm, like, yes, so that we have enough energy coherent with what we want to do in our life. Like, yeah, if I meditate or if I run, I need a completely different set of supply and resources. And I don't have to think about it. I just have to go running, and everything else happens in the autopilot. And ideally, I just have to sit down and close my eyes and I start to meditate. Yeah, but this is not how it happens often. And it's just to get a sense. I like this idea that it's a we need both systems: the activation, so arousal, and the slowing things down. In extreme, the body goes on fire, so we become hyper aroused and tense and anxious. And if we go super slow, if the parasympathetic system in its extreme form, it puts us into a freeze state, like, yeah. And so those extreme states, we don't want to spend our daily life in them, like, so that's really, and very often that's what happens, that the baseline shifts and we start to live of rather elevated being states, whether it being too charged or too numb in a way. And basically the program is really designed to meet both of those states, like, you're waking up the numb and cooling the fire. Thawing the ice and cooling the fire would be a nice metaphor for what we can do with those techniques and tools. Good. And it's really about danger and safety, like, yeah, so the perception of danger or safety in our nervous system, again in this autopilot, will give us a completely different spectrum of experiences and allow us to come into relationship with a different world, basically, a world in which we cultivate safety and we can live in this parasympathetically dominant state, enjoying everything that comes with it, and hopefully switching off the danger perceptions if they're out of sync with what is actually happening in the environment. Yeah. So cultivating safety has been a really big project in my life, for myself and for other people. And I actually had no idea before I started to engage as a therapist and train what safety meant. Like, I really had no idea. And it took a lot of learning and a lot of wow moments actually to realize that, wow, I was actually living in my life with quite a lot of unsafety, like unsafety from past experience. And so cultivating safety is really at the core of what I want to offer. Good. So again, here's just a little bit. So the sympathetic element of our nervous system is really about expressing energy into the world, like running away from the lion. Or actually the dinosaur was a bit of a funny one, because actually the caveman missed the dinosaur by about 65 million years. But anyways, it was a good little animation. But in a way, the musculoskeletal energy really, like, yeah, so basically running, fighting requires expression of muscular energy, like legs to run and arms to fight. And when we're running away from the tiger, they are really together with the metabolic shifts, creating energy for all of this to happen. That's really what saves us from the maulers of the tiger, like, yeah. But it doesn't really save us from those abstract stresses that we may even call lifestyle choices, like, yeah, so the job impingements and everything that the video really nicely presented, yeah. But it's just a metaphor, like firing up the musculoskeletal system to express energy into the world, into the ground, to run away, into punching the predator pursuing me. And it's all about getting it out, isn't it? Like, it's not about keeping it in, like, yeah. And that's really the big problem, like, yeah. So when we don't express it, and when there's nothing to run away from, or when we become overwhelmed, we lose this. The mind-body loses this connection to express this energy, and it accumulates in our physiology, in our neurophysiology, like, yeah. And that's why tremoring is really a way to engage this natural reflex, and tremoring actually resets. It gets rid of all the charge that has been accumulated, which is not needed anymore, and it will reset a more calm and a more rested, more relaxed state. So most times people doing TRE, afterwards, I get the feedback, wow, that was amazing. I feel so relaxed, like, yeah. I feel my whole body, I feel unified and connected. So all those perceptions and being states, they are all a consequence of the body returning to wholeness and letting go of those stored patterns and finding an outlet through this gentle tremoring mechanism. And ideally, it should get us into a parasympathetically dominant state. And yes, especially when we are at rest, like, yeah. So it's basically the ability to switch off and to really rest is probably one of the most important things we have to cultivate in life. Like, yeah, that it's okay to challenge and to go for runs and to even endure stress. But then afterwards, we need to reset. Like, so if the reset doesn't come and the stress continues, we damage our mind and body, really. Good. So let me just show you. So this is an image. Yes. Maybe that's a nice one just before we get there. So this is really just a quick sketch, a representation of our brain and all the interesting parts in relationship to releasing. They all happen in these lower regions of the brain, the older parts of the brain. The limbic system, which really our emotional fight-flight emotional system, and then the brainstem, which is this instinctual, regulating the heart rate, breathing rate, blood pressure. And that's where actually the tremors arise from that we'll be cultivating, like, yeah. And then if it goes out of sync, it also hijacks our neocortex, so this beautiful human addition to the evolutionary brain, which allows us to think rational, be creative, cosmic, spiritual, have belief systems and imaginations, and live within those realms that we create. And those regions, those higher regions, really get hijacked if the deeper parts of the brain become imbalanced, like, yeah. And again, this is just to show you this. We can see from the picture, there's a gun on the floor, there's a scene, like somebody has experienced. This is not a happy bunny, we all know this, don't we? This is somebody who has experienced something terrifying, and he's gone into a protective reflex, like, yeah. He's gone beyond running away, and if you look at the muscles that he's engaging, they're all the muscles that pull us inwards, like, yeah, protecting the belly, curling the spine, and pulling the legs, pulling in the neck, and basically shrinking the body to a ball. That's a natural reflex that we all human beings, actually, cross-culturally, we all go towards this reflex when we are stressed and terrified, yeah. And that is the pathway that we will be learning to release the tension from, like, yeah, because sometimes those, even though life continues, the patterns still remain stuck in our physiology. Cool. So I'm just gonna show you what it is about and how it looks like theory. So I'm just gonna show you a little bit of a movie.
Concepts in attachment theory is that different body parts move
You
away
can
from
you can see the movie, yeah?
rigidity and inflexibility. In a sense, the body
And basically this person has done a set of exercises, and he's gone into this natural tremor reflex, starting at the legs,
into the pelvis. This is a single
then the pelvis,
you're going to observe in the spinal column.
and if you go on, you can see how more and more the spine is beginning to participate.
The body rocking back and forth, which it does naturally as a way of rotating. Now you can see the progressive
Now the whole spine has engaged. You can see the head is beginning to shake a little bit, and there's a wave pattern starting to emerge within the spine.
you can watch this always deeper connection with themselves. And this is what I would call the
Good. So this is basically the format of, that's the release mechanism, like, yeah. So in some ways it's a very safe journey. You've done 7 mild exercises, like, yeah, that everybody can do. And then it's an exploration, a mindful exploration on the floor. And what he was showing there, those tremors, he did not choose the way his body should tremor, like, yeah. So those reflexes came from within, and the exercise is actually to stimulate those reflexes, and then the tremor will do its job. Like, it actually becomes the inner physician traveling through the musculoskeletal, the fascial networks, and doing exactly what it needs to do, releasing what it needs to, meeting contingency and starting to shake against it and release wherever it's held in the body. Cool. So what we've seen here, so this is also a really important one that I want to present you with. So basically, whilst the body was doing all those little tremors, he was observing, he was using his interoceptive network, like, so his sense of his body, connecting to feeling tones, connecting to sensations in the body. He was grounded and present, observing his body, releasing and witnessing, like, yes. So it's not about getting super aroused or super activated. It's about safely meeting those charges and letting them go through the musculoskeletal system, whilst being mindful and conscious of the experience, and conscious also of this reset, like, yeah, and that's a really important aspect. Yeah, it's not about catharsis. It's about using this as a tool that we can practice on a weekly basis and whenever we need it. And you will find that whenever you get stressed, once you know how to do it, you will naturally go there. Like, that's the natural reset. And maybe some of you have experienced it already. Like, yeah, when you were really stressed, you went to bed in the evening, all of a sudden you felt your body was beginning to shake. Yeah? You couldn't control your legs beginning to twitch. Yeah? And this is really an exploration of this reflex and learning to trust it and learning to use it. So that's the TRE. And just what I love about it, the important features of it, it's self-empowering. Like, I can do it myself. I don't need to go to a therapist. I can learn it. Once I learn it, I own it. Yeah. And once I own it, I can use it, and it can help me to support my life. Like, yeah, it's self-regulating. Yeah. So I can meet stress and have an outlet and reset and come back into a baseline that promotes rest and digest and health and well-being. Yeah, it's a free lifelong resource. Like, so once you learn it, it's yours. Like, you own it. Yeah, you don't have to pay for it continuously. You don't have to go to continuous therapy to receive it. It's something you do with yourself. Yeah. Now, it's nice to go to group classes once they're open, but effectively you can do it yourself. It's very simple. Everybody can do it. There's no need to talk about traumatic memories, which can be very relieving, actually. Oh, I need to figure out what it is. We may not even know. And the proposal is you can let go of the most traumatic imprints without ever knowing anything about them. And it's helpful to know and sometimes it emerges, but it's not a prerequisite of letting go of this energy. Yeah, some things we can never know. Like, maybe there's birth trauma, maybe there's prenatal trauma. Like, yes, so we store a lot of, like, we store right from conception and maybe even beyond through our how do you call it, our ancestry lines, the trauma that travels through generations, generational trauma. Yeah, we can hold stuff like that we may never be able to name and say, oh, that's when I fell off the bike, or that's when this happened. Yeah, all of this can be released without having to know what it is. Like, yeah, so that's not what it's about. And then it can really be amazing to integrate the body into talk-based therapies. Yeah, therapy can be amazingly beneficial, talk therapy, psychotherapy, but without the body, it will never get you into those realms. Like, yeah, it will never get you into those tension patterns. And to include the body can really promote a much more holistic well-being in this approach. It supports existing body therapies. Yeah, it will support if you go to a physio. Like, yeah, if you can let go of the energy that is stored within the muscles, they will also respond better to exercise and to massage and to any other body. Your yoga stretches will become more relaxed. Your walk will become more harmonious. Like, yeah, so basically your body will change. And it builds resilience and post-trauma adaptation. Like, so adaptation is really the key. When we don't need to run those survival patterns, we learn to switch them off, and we can respond to the world in a much more harmonious way and coherent way. Good, so that's the end of the TRE presentation. So now a little bit, what does the breath have to do with it? Like, yes, so now the breathing elements that you'll be learning. And I'm just gonna start here. So what is breathing? Like, what does it do for us? Like, yeah. And really the key thing, it's a process in living organisms involving the production of energy, typical with the intake of oxygen and the release of carbon dioxide from the oxidation of complex organic substances. So really the breath is about energy for our cells. Like, yeah. So without oxygen, there's no life. Like, there's no energy basically being created to sustain life. Yeah. And So basically our breath is responsible for the energy metabolism in our physiology, like, yeah. And if it's harmonious, it will actually cohere and do exactly, it will be exactly coherent to the being states that I'm in. When I'm running, my breath will naturally change and generate more energy and get rid of more CO2 to facilitate the running. When I sit down and meditate, my breath should naturally completely calm down to about 3 to 4, 5 breaths per minute to allow me to go into this deep state of connection to my inner being in a way, like. And very often that's not the case. So whenever there's a dysfunction, an autonomic dysfunction, imbalance, there's an imbalance of our breathing, and there's actually a huge epidemic of breath-related issues in our society. Like, yeah, we've become notoriously mal-breathers, like, yeah. And so my proposal, we can use the breath just like we can use the release through the musculoskeletal to reset our physiology. And again, this is a little formula. Oxygen plus glucose generates the energy currency of our cells plus CO2 plus H2O plus CO2 plus water. Like, yeah, so that's the breath formula. Now, the most amazing thing, and what I actually find such an amazing gift in a way, nature has given us a tremendous amount of control over our breath. Like, yeah, if you were to think about, if you had a car, what would you need, like, to control the car? Like, you'd need a steering wheel, you'd need an accelerator pedal, you need a brake, a gear stick, yeah, and presto, the engine is running, yeah, and the clutch, yeah, of course, and with those regulatory mechanisms, you basically conduct the car, like, yeah, and you're able to drive your car at will, like, yeah, accelerate it, brake it, bring it to places. I just need to go and mute everybody. There's some sounds coming up. Okay. And basically, we've got conscious control. We can do all those things. We can slow down the breath. We can speed it up. We can pause it so we can hold our breath. We can send it in different areas of our body. Breathe more into the chest. Breathe more into the diaphragm. We can do all sorts of things with our breath, like, yeah. And once we are conscious of it, we can learn how to regulate it, yeah. And the question is, who is driving it if we are not in control? Again, the metaphor, the limbic system and the deeper brainstem areas, the monkey and the crocodile, like, so we need to get the monkey and the crocodile off the driver's seat, basically, like, yeah. So, and that means taking control of our breath and learning to regulate our breath so those primitive reflexes do not control it, like, I'm the captain of my ship, like, yeah. And again, there'll be a whole lot of interesting breathing techniques that you will learn over the 8 days that will help you to do exactly that. Now, what is the recipe? Basically, there's two of the most important features. Maybe the most important one should be actually on the first one, learning to breathe less, like, yeah. So most issues of our breathing is that we overbreathe. We've become hyperventilators, yeah. Which means that the pattern and the receptors in our brain change, and we become patterned to become intolerant to CO2. So we need to breathe more and more and more, and we damage our physiology when we do so. Like, it's a lot of maladies that come from this over-breathing, like, yeah. So what we'll be learning is techniques to prolong phases where we retain our breath, hold our breath basically, and it's called intermittent hypoxic training, and it resets all those breathing patterns, and it gets us into a really deep state. And the second, here the first one, rhythmical breathing, like, yeah, so when I breathe to a rhythm, an amazing phenomenon starts to occur. If it's consistent, and if it's between 3 and 6 beats or 6 breaths per minute, I will start to express what is called heart coherence, like, yeah. So it's basically where my heart synchronizes with my breath, and all the subsystems, so my brain waves will change, all the systems of the body physiology start to cohere with this breathing, and it's basically what we would call a flow state. Like when I'm in a state of peak flow, my breath is rhythmical, like it's completely coherent with the action, and it doesn't disturb my life, and it actually supports whatever I'm doing. And we can create this just by breathing in this way. Good. And what does it do? Maybe one back. Almost there. So it shifts, basically it can shift us from an emotional negative space into an emotionally positively aligned space. Like, yeah. So it promotes positive emotions like gratitude, compassion, hope, yeah, all those things, and it transforms literally our way in which we perceive and feel our life. And again, synchronized electric activity in the brain and nervous system underlies our ability to perceive, feel, focus, learn, reason, and perform at our best. So this is the what we can achieve when we start to use our breath intelligently, and that is the second aspect of this 8-day program. Yeah, and the benefits from this, particularly the breath retention, so this intermittent hypoxic training, it increases the oxygen carrying capacity in our body. So your body produces more red blood cells, able to carry more oxygen. It increases the blood flow to the brain. It enhances the innate immune function, so the immune system is being boosted. It provides a net anti-inflammatory effect, so it downregulates inflammatory conditions which are often associated with depression and anxiety states, because the immune system gets out of sync. It lowers blood glucose, increases insulin sensitivity, and it improves resilience. Like, so a lot of good stuff. That's just a few highlights. There's a lot more. And all of this is part of the program, really. Good. So let's look a little bit at the program. The last slide. So basically, how is the week structured? Like, yeah, so basically the way my program starts is with a group Zoom meeting. It's about coming together, sharing a little bit, and then going into setting up the week. So setting up the intention for the week, what we're going to be doing. I give you a framework for what exactly, how we're going to approach it. And then we'll do a session, a TOE session, where I will guide you through the exercises, and then through the tremoring. And so basically you'll be able to explore and I'll be guiding you through it, like, you know, as a first getting to know. Then there will be, you will receive each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you will receive recordings of a video lesson, basically bringing you through me doing the exercises, basically, yeah, and explaining exactly how to do it safely. And then you will get a guided session, recorded session, which will guide you through doing the exercises, and then through the tremoring, like, basically, like, yeah. And so all this will be audio recording, and then the video will be so you actually see exactly how to do them, yeah. And then the second day you will get a guided recording of a breath session, basically 15 minutes of learning to regulate your breath, like, yeah. And then on day 4, you will get again a breath session, 15 minutes of tapping and breathing, an amazing way to really relax the body, using the breath and some very simple body tapping to go very deeply relaxed, like, yeah. And then a combination on day 5, a guided session, a tremoring session, and then combined afterwards a deep breath session, like, yes, again going really deep into relaxation, exploring very deep states, like, yeah. So this is really the benefit with the breathing. You can go really deep, like all meditative traditions, they hinge, or that they build upon the breath, like, yeah. There's no mindfulness based approach without being able to, at least to a degree, regulate and control your breathing, like, and observe it as well, become aware of it. And then a Zoom ending session at the end, like, yeah. So it's basically coming together again, reflecting upon the week, and doing a breath session together at the end. And that's the program. There's also one personal session with me included in the whole program. And yeah, that can be booked on an individual base, like, yeah. So it's basically why I actually tailor it directly for you and bring you through, you know, just a personalized approach to the whole program. And that's it, basically.